We're back live in the studio here at Viewpoint, high on the hill in Atlanta, County Road 2250. Our guest this morning is Father Jeffrey Laible, pastor of Holy Family Parish. And Father Laible has been intensely involved in military chaplaincy. Are you a full colonel now, Padre?
Lieutenant Colonel?
I thought Lieutenant Colonel, as we used to say, light colonel, but they weren't too light, I can tell you that. I don't want to make light of that.
Right.
Father makes a significant, and his peers that serve as chaplains make significant contributions in their various respective duties in the armed forces. Father's particular involvement has been going to Landstuhl, Germany, as we all know, and we talked about that before up here, Padre, and we're that's the interesting thing to, I guess maybe everybody, but particularly those who have had a uniform on, understand the need there, and we appreciate that very much. Before we took a commercial break, I mentioned the fact that the Wounded Warriors Project, they're out, obviously, and there's so many good, like disabled American veterans, and there isn't a day goes by that you get a piece of mailing requesting some assistance. We all have to pick and choose.
You do.
We just simply can't do all of them. And
that's tough, isn't it?
It is.
yeah,
It's difficult.
right. It'd be nice if we all had the resources to just take care of all of them, but that's not the fit. So each of us has to have our own little cudgel that we use here. Mine happens to be Wounded Warriors because I'm so interested in that. And I just made a challenge to 648-5510 for somebody to step up and tell us that they're going to make the first $19. I'm not asking you to do it every month, but if once you do it, it might be like licorice. You might want to go back to it again.
There you go. Now, do you have the address to which they would send this? That would be kind of important.
No, as a matter of fact, the old guy does not have that address, but Wounded Warrior, but I tell you one thing, if they send it to WLCN in Atlanta, we'll make sure it gets there. We'll use Mr. Ash as a post office to make sure that that's forwarded to the Wounded Warrior Project. So that's my challenge. Well, somebody out there in the county in the ether area that we have listening to us this morning, send us a check to WLCN, make it payable to the Wounded Warrior Project. We'll doggone well sure it gets there where it's supposed to be.
What sort of aid does Wounded Warrior Project offer to these returning veterans?
They offer, according to their website, specific services for the warriors as well as family support. And if you go to their Wounded Warrior Project website, you can get more specific information on how they help. I think one example that I would like to offer to our listeners is a spouse was recognizing symptoms of post-traumatic stress in her husband. He had been downrange in Iraq or Afghanistan, and he was not for whatever reason reaching out to get the kind of help that he needed. And so she went to the Wounded Warrior website, and she went to the family support. She sent an email to the director describing the kinds of difficulties her husband was experiencing, and within 24 hours she had a whole list of available resources for her husband, and she is convinced that the Wounded Warrior Project, the availability of that project, that website, and the response that she got saved her husband's life, because he was on the verge of possible suicide because of the trauma that he was experiencing. There's one example. So if you save one soldier's life, and that's happened through that website, then it's worth it. Everything that they do is worth it.
Now, this is an entirely private agency, isn't it?
Correct.
It's not backed by the U.S. government or even Illinois.
Right.
No, that's
correct.
exactly right.
All done by private donations by citizens like you and I.
I Googled up here last night, and their mission is very simple: to honor and empower wounded warriors. Oh, how more simply can you state it than that? And the vision is to foster the most successful, well-adjusted generation of wounded warriors, service members in our nation's history. And in fact, that's absolutely the case. Because of medical science, because of this discovery and that discovery as far as injuries and wounds are concerned, we have a lot more surviving
We do.
service people.
Mhm.
And that's why it's so important. And again, I would urge people to just get on their computers and Google up Wounded Warriors. Now, Father?
Can I just ask him?
Well,
because
you own 51% of the show. Why don't you just speak right up?
I am always interested in how things come about. Which conflict did the Wounded Warriors Project come into being? Oh, that was after 9/11.
After 9/11.
That was quite a conflict, yes.
Right.
And it's been going now since then.
Mhm.
And tell me, who was it? A veteran himself?
I believe
who
it was a
born the
family member,
idea?
but I don't have that specific information. But I think if you went to the website, you would be able to look a little bit about their history and how they actually started. I believe it, but it was, I believe, some family members that got together. And of course, with the availability of the internet and being able to set up websites to just disseminate this kind of information and this kind of opportunity, that, of course, is going to be a lot of, give it a lot of energy.
Another thing I'm always curious about, if you will, is the fact that some organizations take the donations, and an overwhelming amount of that goes to overhead. And I'm always interested in what's the overhead out of the $19.
That I would not know.
Probably pretty
I would think
Minimal.
minimal.
Minimal in this case because
mostly
Right. It would be like the USO,
volunteer.
and the USO would probably operate on primarily with volunteers.
Right.
And so that would probably be the case in this.
this
Yeah.
is such an altruistic project that I think it'd be safe to say that those who administer it probably are not very heavy on the compensation end
Right.
of it. This is pretty much a labor of true love. This one fellow says that he had so much PTSD and as well as physical injuries, and he talks about his recovery being one day at a time.
That's right.
It's kind of like an alcoholic, a day at a
Right.
time,
That's right.
or a drug addict, a day at a time. They take it and make that day work and then go on to the next day. He just says now he's so happy to be able to spend some quality time with his wife and two sons that he didn't have before because he was so nutty, in his own words. It's something that he had no control over at all. So, well, now, this has all been very serious, and we appreciate that, but, right here in Lincoln, Logan County, we did something pretty good here not too long ago. You had a capital fund drive. And
We did it, Holy Family.
and,
Very successful.
The reason I bring that up is that in order to the benefit of the community, it may be a parochial thing and a parochial school and all, but they don't have to be members of the Roman faith to go to the Carroll Catholic School.
No, our
and,
enrollment is open to the public.
And I'd like to talk about how you engineered this very successful capital fund drive. If I had a hat on this morning, I'd take it off to him for
Well, thank you very much.
having
It's,
done that.
I am very grateful for all of the parishioners who came forward to support our capital campaign at Holy Family Church, as well as the campaign committee. Obviously, a project of this scope is something that I could not have done by myself, but I had a wonderful group of people that have stepped forward to help me, organize the whole capital campaign. And to date, we've had about almost 330 contributors. And our pledges so far, as of last week, was $889,100.
Wow.
Which is marvelous because our goal was $750,000. So we have more than exceeded our goal, and so I'm very grateful for all of our parishioners and alumni of Carroll School, and also community members who have come forward to recognize the contributions that Carroll Catholic School has made to the community of Lincoln as well as to the larger community, but also recognizing the importance of Holy Family Church. Because part of the proceeds will go to invest in our building at Carroll School. That's our newest building at Holy Family. That's about 50 years old. It was built in 1960. So it needs capital improvements. Holy Family Church was built in 1903, so we need to make some investments into our century-old, beautiful century-old church.
It is so beautiful.
Yeah, and then of course we have two very large cemeteries, Holy Cross Cemetery as well as St. Mary's Cemetery, and those are all of that is maintained through the donations of our people at Holy Family, and so some of the proceeds will go to help us with long-term maintenance.
The vista in the south side of St. Mary's, I was out there yesterday, as a matter of fact. That's just gorgeous. It drops off, and the rooms were down towards the tree line. It's just a beautiful, beautiful sight out there. Gene says, well, this is a lot prettier than Holy Cross. I said, well, it's a lot newer. Back in the days when Holy Cross and Old Union Cemetery were founded and planned, they didn't look down the road quite as far as, they didn't have the ability, the capacity to look down the road that far.
Right.
They just laid it out, and that's the way it was. That was a bad pun, by the way.
Yeah, that was kind of a poor choice of words.
Poor choice of words, yeah. Now, Carroll Catholic, all 8 elementary grades there, Father?
Preschool through 8th grade, correct.
Preschool, including kindergarten.
Correct.
And you have 80, 90 students?
We should have about, we're projecting that we should have around maybe 95 students next year, so our enrollment has been going up, which we're very pleased about.
Good.
We have a great faculty, many, many years of dedicated service, wonderful administration, and a lot of good things happening at Carroll School. And our parish obviously has recognized that because a significant amount of money will be used from our capital campaign to invest in our Carroll School building to kind of bring it up to the standards of 2012. We need to replace the roof. That's 20 years old. The windows are original. Those are 50 years old. So those are the first things that we're going to do for Carroll School.
Any homeowner knows that the urban removal just never ends, does it?
No, it does not.
No.
You've got to maintain your buildings, and I mean,
Or
after
you won't
50
have them.
years. That's right. Absolutely, they'll fall down in front of you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's not a cheap proposition.
Well, it isn't. You think of how much it costs to replace a roof just on your home. Magnify that now by a building of that size, or a building the size of Holy Family Church, and you're talking about a substantial amount of capital needs for those buildings.
I seem to think I've heard what the bid was on fixing the roof at Carroll.
It's about $285,000 to
Can you
replace
imagine?
the roof. Yes.
Well, as
Carroll
Ev
School.
Dirksen said, first thing you know, you're talking about big money.
Yeah, right.
That's right. Yeah.
That's
Isn't
exact-
that something? And it's the generosity of certainly your parishioners and the
absolutely.
community as well.
And the community as well. Yeah, people
Well, they
recognize
recognize that as a necessary thing,
it. Absolutely.
and
yeah.
that's a lot of change to come up with.
It's a lot of change to come up with. And this is our first capital campaign at Holy Family since Carroll School was built.
That goes back a ways.
That goes back a ways, yeah.
Yes, it
So
does.
People have been extremely
Father,
generous. I'm so grateful.
I recall the days when we had St. Mary's School
Right?
and St. Patrick's
That's
School.
right.
Oh, yes.
And on weekends, they'd spend the weekend beating up on one another, and then every other third weekend, they'd beat the hell out of us Protestants.
Well, they were equal opportunity.
That's
Equal
right,
opportunity,
absolutely.
that's
That's right.
right.
You all got along.
That's
We're still speaking to one another?
And it's seriously, they had their own individual football teams.
Yes.
Think of that.
Oh, I have
Yeah.
friends who went to one school or the other,
Right.
and by golly, they still feel a loyalty.
Yes.
I mean, a big time
Isn't that-
loyalty
yeah.
to their grade school.
Right.
Yeah. And those people at St. Mary's or those people at St. Patrick's just
Yeah.
weren't quite up to snuff.
Yeah.
It depends on which side of the fence you were at.
That's right.
That's right,
But
yeah.
they've all come together on this, though, because
They
this,
surely have.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
yeah.
is a combination of St. Mary's and St. Patrick's
Right.
now being Holy Family, coming forward and recognizing the importance of what we need to do to move
Well, it
forward
kinda
for our children
exempli-
and for our faith.
Yeah. It exemplifies Gene Doherty's famous comment about naming of the new church. It says the First United Catholic Church on the road. Well, we had the United Catholic
That's
Church.
right. We
St.
are
Mary's and
united.
St. Patrick's
Yes.
coming together, and the community.
Right.
Now, how quickly will you be able to start doing these things that need
Well, our
to be
first
done?
project will be the roof, and that for the school, and that will happen this summer. And that'll
Getting right
take
into it.
most of the summer for that, and then we're not planning on doing the replacement of the windows at the school until next summer. There's no way we could do two large projects
No.
over such a short period of time. So we'll do the school roof this summer, and then the windows next summer, and then as the money becomes available through people's monthly
Pledges.
contributions or yearly contributions, we'll be then able to work on Holy Family Church, as well as make some improvements at our cemeteries. It's a 3-year project altogether in terms of the capital campaign. And some people have chosen and asked if they could stretch their contributions over 4 years. And so, of course, we want to make sure that we got the cash on hand before we do the project. So as that cash becomes available, we'll be able to complete each of the projects that are listed in our capital campaign brochure.
I suppose it's superfluous to mention it. If somebody still wants to get on board, that'd be okay,
Oh,
wouldn't it?
we'd be delighted. Absolutely, Jeff. If anyone's out there who hasn't made a contribution, but you think about it, our buildings are older, and what we proposed in our capital campaign were just some basics. But even with our Holy Family Church, there's a number of other areas, maintenance areas, that need to have attention. But we didn't want to set the goal so high, that it wasn't not obtainable. But certainly, if people are interested and haven't made a pledge, the pledges are still being accepted.
It's never too late.
It's never too late, Judy. Absolutely.
Well, Judy, I've noted, unfortunately, that older things do need more maintenance. And
Father wouldn't know about that yet.
no, you'll find that out. You'll find
You
out.
will find out, more's the pity.
Right.
Before we close, I'd like to get a quick commercial in. Mr. Arish didn't know I'm coming up with this, but he won't cut us off, I don't think. The Lincoln College is having this jazz gig a week from today. Lincoln College's Johnson Center for the Performing Arts. We're having the St. Louis Rivermen. They're an outstanding group. Tickets are available. There will be available at the box office that night, Wednesday, May the 9th. So 7 o'clock. Come on up there a few minutes before 7. Get your ticket and enjoy yourself. We've discussed the Wounded Warrior Project. And as we close, I'd just like to remind folks that Jim won't be unhappy if there's an extra check or two in the mail. That doesn't apply to WLCN. If you make it out to the Wounded Warrior Project, that's a challenge for somebody. Let's see if they can pick up that challenge. Wars. Been with us since, forever.
Had enough people to participate.
Yeah, always. There's always somebody to participate in. Will Rogers, famous guy, funny, and he was a humanitarian as well as a funny man. He said, diplomats are just as essential in starting a war as soldiers are in finishing it. Amen to that. Thank you for Father Laible. Thank you for Viewpoint.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.